It was late, the house was quiet, and my stepson needed help. I told myself I shouldn't, that it would cross a line I could never return from. But that night, when he looked at me the way he did, I couldn't stop myself. And nothing has been the same since. It was one of those nights when the silence in the house felt heavier than usual. My husband was away on a work trip, and I thought I'd finally have some time to myself. But then, just after midnight, I heard the front door creak open. My stepson stumbled in, his clothes disheveled, the smell of alcohol trailing behind him. I froze in the living room, watching him as he tried to keep his balance. His eyes looked distant, a little lost, and for a moment I didn't even recognize him. He wasn't the boy I had known when I first married his father. He was older now, different, carrying a certain weight in his presence that unsettled me. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice low, unsure whether to sound concerned or stern. He gave a half smile, one that was equal parts charming and heartbreaking. "I'm fine, just had too much to drink," he muttered, nearly tripping over his own feet. Instinctively, I rushed forward and caught his arm before he could fall. The warmth of his skin startled me, and I pulled away quickly. But then he looked at me, really looked at me, with an expression I couldn't decipher. It wasn't just drunken helplessness. It was something deeper, something that made me hesitate. That was the first moment I realized I shouldn't have helped him that night, but I couldn't stop myself. I guided him toward the couch, trying to keep my thoughts from spiraling. His body leaned heavily against mine, his arm draped across my shoulder as if he trusted me more than anyone else in that moment. I told myself it was only because he was drunk, that it meant nothing. But the way his hand lingered when I helped him sit down made my pulse race. "Here, drink some water," I said, rushing to the kitchen. I needed the distance, needed a moment to steady myself. But when I returned, he was watching me with those dark, tired eyes that seemed older than his years. "You didn't have to wait up for me," he murmured, his voice softer now. "I wasn't waiting," I replied quickly, maybe too quickly. "I just couldn't sleep." He smirked faintly, his lips curving in a way that made my stomach twist. "I like that you care," he said, almost under his breath. I froze. It was such a simple thing to say, but the tone in his voice carried a weight I wasn't prepared for. I should have dismissed it, brushed it off, reminded him I was his stepmother. But instead, I stood there rooted to the spot, searching for words that wouldn't come. The silence stretched between us, heavy and dangerous. That night was already beginning to blur the lines. I sat down on the edge of the couch, trying to keep some distance, but he leaned closer, his shoulder brushing mine. The contact was innocent enough, but my body reacted as if it wasn't. I could hear the slow rhythm of his breathing, feel the warmth radiating off him. "You've always been good to me," he whispered suddenly, his words slurred but sincere. "Dad doesn't even notice half the time, but you do." His confession caught me off guard. My throat tightened, torn between the pride of being seen and the guilt of feeling something I shouldn't. I forced a small smile, hoping to deflect. "That's what family does," I said gently. But then he turned his head, and his eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. "You're more than that," he murmured, his gaze lingering too long, too dangerously. I should have stood up right then, should have ended the conversation before it went further. But I didn't. Instead, I stayed, caught in the moment, my heart betraying the logic screaming in my mind. It was in that silence, in that closeness, that I realized how easily a boundary could blur, and once it did, there was no going back. He shifted slightly, leaning back into the couch, his head tilting just enough that his shoulder brushed against mine again, this time, deliberately. My breath caught, and I prayed he wouldn't notice the way my chest rose and fell faster than before. "Why are you always there for me?" he asked quietly, his voice low and uncertain. "Even when I don't deserve it." The honesty in his tone disarmed me. I wanted to give him the answer a stepmother should, that I cared, that it was my role, that it was nothing more. But instead, the words came out softer, shakier. "Because I can't help it. I worry about you." For a moment, neither of us moved. The air between us felt too heavy, too charged. His hand shifted, brushing against mine on the couch cushion. It was the lightest touch, almost accidental, but neither of us pulled away. A rush of guilt surged through me. My mind screamed that this was wrong, that I needed to stand, to walk away, to put an end to the moment. But my body betrayed me, frozen by the weight of his presence and the unspoken truth that hung between us. That night was supposed to be about helping him, guiding him safely to bed. Instead, it was becoming something else, something I knew I'd regret, yet couldn't bring myself to stop. His fingers brushed over mine again, lingering this time. It was deliberate now, and the realization sent a jolt through me. My heart thudded, so loudly I was certain he could hear it. I should have pulled away, but I didn't. I just sat there, trembling in the quiet. He looked at me, his eyes heavy but focused, almost pleading. "You don't have to pretend," he said softly. "I see it. I feel it." The words landed like a secret I had been hiding from myself, exposed under the dim light of the living room. My throat went dry. "You shouldn't say things like that," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Then why aren't you stopping me?" he asked, his question cutting through the silence, daring me to deny what was happening. I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. Instead, I found myself leaning into the closeness, unable to resist the gravity that pulled me toward him. Every instinct told me to run, to escape, to protect the family we both belonged to. But another part of me, one I didn't want to admit existed, longed to stay. And in that moment, I knew the line I had been so desperate to protect was fading fast. His words echoed in my head, louder than the ticking clock on the wall. "Why aren't you stopping me?" It was the question I didn't dare answer, because the truth terrified me. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my cheek, and I froze. My heart raced, torn between the instinct to push him away and the overwhelming pull to let the moment happen. His hand slid over mine, firm now, leaving no room for doubt about what he wanted. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to whisper, "This isn't right." My voice was weak, trembling, as if I were trying to convince myself more than him. But his eyes, those eyes that once looked at me with the innocence of a boy, now carried something else entirely. Something that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. "You don't have to be afraid," he murmured, his tone almost gentle. "I'll never tell." That promise, spoken in the stillness of the night, shook me. It should have been the warning I needed, the final reason to get up and walk away. Instead, it felt like permission, like a door opening to something I had been secretly holding back for far too long. And in that moment, with every line blurred and every thought clouded, I realized I wasn't going to stop him. The room felt smaller, the silence louder, as if the house itself knew the secret about to unfold. My body was stiff with fear, yet every second that passed made it harder to move away. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from my face, and the tenderness of it unraveled the last of my defenses. "You don't know what you're doing," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I was warning him or myself. "Yes, I do," he said firmly, his voice steadier than I expected. There was no hesitation in him now, only certainty. His touch lingered against my cheek, and I closed my eyes, hating myself for not pulling back. For so long I had been starved of attention, of intimacy, of simply being noticed. And here he was, giving me all of it, unfiltered and dangerous. I should have walked away, but my body leaned in before my mind could protest. Our closeness shattered the fragile boundary we had been balancing on all night. When his lips nearly brushed mine, my heart pounded so violently I thought it might give me away. The truth was clear. Whatever happened next, there would be no undoing it. That was the moment I knew. Helping him had turned into something else entirely. The inches between us disappeared faster than I could think. His lips touched mine, hesitant at first, but real. I froze, every nerve in my body alive, screaming at me to stop. Yet I didn't move. I let it happen. It was a kiss that should never have existed, born from loneliness, from weakness, from something neither of us could admit out loud. When he pulled back just slightly, searching my face, I saw the unspoken question in his eyes. Was I going to push him away, or was I going to let him keep going? My silence was the answer. He leaned in again, deeper this time, and I kissed him back. The guilt hit instantly, twisting my stomach, but the hunger inside me overpowered it. I told myself it was just a moment, just a slip. But even as I thought it, I knew the truth. This was the moment that changed everything. Because once that line was crossed, once I gave in, there was no going back to what we were before. No pretending it was just help, no telling myself it meant nothing. I shouldn't have helped him that night, but I couldn't stop myself. The rest of that night is a blur of choices I wish I hadn't made, but can never erase. What began as concern, as something innocent, spiraled into something I never thought I was capable of. When the morning light slipped through the curtains, reality struck harder than any guilt I'd ever known. He was still there, asleep, unaware of the storm raging inside me. I stood over him, my chest tight, my thoughts in chaos. I wanted to tell myself it was just a mistake, that it would never happen again. But deep down, I knew better. A single night had rewritten the way he looked at me, the way I looked at him, the way our lives would be entangled from then on. Every sound in the house felt louder, every shadow heavier, as I realized I would have to face the consequences of what we'd done. The worst part wasn't just the guilt, it was the fear that a part of me didn't regret it. That night became a secret etched into my very being, one I could never confess, yet could never forget. And no matter how much I tried to bury it, one truth lingered in my heart. I shouldn't have helped him that night, but I couldn't stop myself.